what I seen was, like I was on there. My father was out mowing oats with a scythe, and my mother was out, picking up the sheaves and tying them, and they were making stooks. And I was lying out on it. She left me bedded down on one of them stooks, and it was an eclipse. We seen an eclipse, and it was the sun turned blue in the in the afternoon. It was a bright sunny day, and then it turned blue. And I remember the look on my mother's face, the fear and the of looking at the sky and seeing that maybe this was the end of the world or something. And it was like still. And that instilled something in me. This feeling, and like my whole life has been filled with dreams of the sun coming up on the other side of the sky, the moon in the wrong place, all this sort of stuff. That's and it was and that was the Stook of Oats that I was under, and the grain and the whole feeling of that, and the picture of my dad with the scythe, going at that. That's from 2.5 years old. Yeah. This shelter here was built in 1979, and it was built in a hurry because my girlfriend was a mountaineer, and we needed to make a base camp for the winter. And I come here one time to help somebody get firewood. There was an old clear cut, and all the trees were down, but it was so beautiful, the panorama of the mountains and the lake and all that, that I said, oh, that'd be a nice place to live. Yeah. Somewhere in your life you got to make your stand. And before I come here, I was a traveler. I wasn't. I didn't feel at home. I didn't feel like. But when I come up here and I watch the sun rise and set and around Willett in the wintertime, where it comes up and then goes behind the other peak and then comes up again, I all of a sudden I got in touch with the movements of the stars and the moon in one place. It oriented me towards this place, even though it took me a long time to really feel at home here because of the sort of tenure I had, because I didn't want to get too attached to the place. I didn't know who was going to how it was going to go. I never did. I still don't. It's not private. It's not real estate, and I made an effort at one time, myself and my wife, to buy or lease this where we live here, because we'd been here so long and we put so much effort into making clearings and gardens and so on that we figured we'd get tenure on, and then we could build a better house and so on. But after about 8 years of application, trying and so on, we got turned down, and the only thing they would offer us was a license to occupy, which is just like a 5-year lease that could be renewable, but would have to agree to be off in 5 years if that's what they required. So I told them that I wouldn't make that kind of agreement. So that was the end of that effort. So no compromise. Yeah. 30 years later, we're still here. When Amber was, my daughter was 2.5 years old, I'd brought her up here because my girlfriend at the time, we were, both of us were homeless, and I was wondering where we were going to spend the winter. And there was an old man in Johnson's Landing. He wanted me to get him some poles for his chicken house to build, and he knew there was nice straight cedar poles up here. So I take Amber up here and we get some poles, but in the process Amber forgets her red shoes, So I had to bring her back up here to get her red shoes. So I brought my girlfriend up here, and I was just wanting to see how she felt about the place, and she was just totally amazed by the place. So this is where I decided in the world to settle down. It feels very permanent in the sense that it feels like home. This is the most at home I feel in any place since I left the place I was born. I felt like a drifter, a traveler. I'd traveled a lot around BC and just seeing what was happening. I'd go down to the coast sometimes. I'd go up to the Caribou, the Chilcotin, and camp, and then find some work to do for somebody. I worked for a hay rancher up there, a cattle rancher, and that's where I first used horses in BC, was helping an old rancher put up hundreds of acres of hay. When I decided to make a living farming, I have to go back to my childhood and how I started. My childhood was, I have fond memories of my childhood and going, and my experiences with, how we did things. And I worked for farmers. The immigrant kids, it was quite common for them to work at an early age, because that's what we did in the old country. I got to dislike farming in the process of the things I had to do, and one of them was driving a tractor. Because my first experience when I come to Canada was I got to be the tractor driver, and it was kind of a traumatic experience because the owner of the farm told me, looked at me and figured I was a little bit too light to pitch bales, so he said, well, you can drive the tractor. But I'd never been near a tractor before. So then he looked at me when I hesitated, and he said, well, if you don't want to do it, you can go home. So that's where I learned to drive a tractor. But I don't know if that affected my attitude or not, but I got good at a tractor when I was 12 years old. I like horses, I like the idea of horse farming, and it's a clean way to do it, and it also takes a lot of skill. I decided that's the way I wanted to do it, and also some of my land was not very suited to tractors, the land that I had access to, because it was side hill and sloped and all that. And in the old country, that kind of land was the most practical thing to use on it, was horses.
Come in. Whoa, 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 whoa.
When I have people that come want to learn something of me, I just come and watch me. I'll show you how I do it. And that's where I start with people. That I have demand that people be observant. To actually explain stuff to people. I have a hard time with that, and that's not the way I like to do it. I don't want to come there, like if you're in the field and I'm doing things a certain way, I'll show you how I do it, and then I'll see how you get it. Yeah. For a person to learn horses out of a book is pretty difficult. and with information. A lot of people I find that with their first introduction to the horse, they treat it like a machine. Like you say whoa and the brakes are on, you know. And to me, it's more like being on a boat in rough water. That there's always movement going on, and you always have to be in touch with the movement with horses. You can't just say, "Oh, I got that figured out," and then drift off. When you do that, your horses drift off. So it takes a lot of focus. For me, it's a discipline. It's actually maybe like somebody doing the yoga or something like that, because it really takes you out of yourself, makes you focus. You know, when I hit my mid-40s, I decided, you know, this work that I'm doing is totally meaningless to me, you know. Going out there and putting 3 bags on and making a bunch of money. And any amount of it, I got so that this is just playing figures for the government, you know. That it's not very effective, and it justifies cutting down more forests. So I decided I'm going to try not to have to do this, and that's when I decided to farm. I've never really been a money person. I've been more like I like to have money as a tool, but to have money to give to my daughter or pay or buy a new truck, no, I'm not into that. I prefer to do things the more uncertain way, you know. So when I started growing food, I come to realize that this is really important, to feed my family and my friends and people around me. Even with no water, this won't make sparks. It's because it turns slow, and it's a fine stone, eh? So I'll give this a touch up too. Not totally necessary. When I was on the Yukon River, I met this old man that was drifting down the river, and he was probably in his 80s. And he must have been an iron worker or something like that, and he built himself a canoe out of 45-gallon barrels welded together, like cut in half, with an outrigger on it, and he had a very nice setup, eh? And it was almost like he was getting free of his life and the world and so on, to go and get free of whatever it was, so that he could end his life in a dignified way or something. That he had this, and that always intrigued me. That old man had the courage to do that, because a lot of people have looked for the comfort of being cared for and all this, and maybe having an easy time in their wheelchair or whatever. But he was doing what I thought was heroic, yeah. I don't remember having, second thoughts about this place. For some reason, I was right from the start. I was committed, and then when it become a challenge, then I'm a very stubborn by nature, and then I'll see who's going to win this. That was my attitude, and if I'm going to leave, I'm not going to leave easy. That was in my attitude, and still is. Yeah, I've told somebody if they ever drag me out of here, they can fix the road with me going down.